Hello, welcome to a new video. If you're new here, my name's Katie, I'm an artist and illustrator, and I've been doing a daily art challenge which I've been sharing on Instagram and also doing a bi-weekly roundup here on YouTube just to talk through the pieces I've made and the thoughts behind each piece and how I've been finding the challenge. Today I'm sharing all the pieces I made in weeks 14 and 15, so let's jump right into it. Day 79 is this snow scene which I did on this loose piece of paper, and this was quite a quick one. I think I was still in like the Christmassy mood because I just launched my Christmas cards and they're still available if you're interested. I'll pop a link to my Etsy shop down below. But I still wanted to do something wintry, and so I created this snow scene using some gouache, Neocolor pastels and Prismacolor pencils. This was a really quick one, but I'm really pleased with how it came out. It's just on a scrap piece of paper, but it's quite thick, so it really held it up with the paint nicely, and I really like the roughness of this. It definitely was quite a quick one, but there's definitely a looseness to it which I really like, and I didn't overthink it, so I think that's why I like it so much. I really like the extra pop of blue which I added with the Neocolor pastel, and yeah, a really simple one to start off week 14, but I am pleased with this one. If you saw my weekly vlog from last week, you'll know that I did a solo drawing date and did some plein air drawing, and that was for day 80 of the daily challenge, and that's in my Talens A5 sketchbook. So I don't really love how this one came out. I think it's very basic, and obviously when I'm out and about and doing a plein air piece I don't have my paints with me, so this was done using Tombows, Neocolor pastels and Prismacolor pencils. And usually I use my gouache for a base, but here I just used Tombows. And I kept a lot of negative space, I didn't fill in the sky or the water, so I think composition wise it's okay. It's certainly not how I'd normally paint, but I am pleased that I did it outside. And I think the reason why I like this one so much was just because I really enjoyed my solo drawing date. It was very peaceful and calm and reminded me that I can go out in the middle of the day to do some drawing, because I'm privileged enough to be able to be a freelance artist, and that's one of the things that I always dreamed of being able to do. I really enjoy drawing outside, and so although this one isn't technically very good or one of my most ambitious pieces, it gives me a nice feeling, and I think that's what art can be all about sometimes. So pretty simple, pretty quick. I think it took about half an hour, but yeah, a nice one that gives me nice memories. So day 81 is also in the Talens sketchbook. I've been really enjoying working in sketchbooks lately, and this time I went to the Lake District but on Google Maps. So this is the result of the drawing, and I'm really pleased with this one. I really love how the tree came out and the colours of the spread. I also really like the lighting with the shadows. People is something that I don't normally draw, and in the scene on Google Maps, the people were obviously there walking by, and I almost didn't add them. I almost just kept it like an empty scene, but I'm really glad that I did. It was out of my comfort zone, but I think it helps give life to the drawing. It really helps people, I think, who's viewing the picture to imagine themselves there, and it makes it more like a real life scene. So I'm glad I added those in, and I think the shadows make it feel more dynamic. And overall it's quite messy. One of the things that I realised before I was painting this was that I've become quite tight in my artwork lately again, and obviously I'm always trying to loosen up and really show an energy in my work, so that was something that I wanted to do in this piece, but obviously it's going to be an ongoing journey for me to try and take away that tightness in my work. And then the other thing I noticed was that I usually don't go straight to the edge. I usually, like in the previous page, for example, I leave a border. So I really tried to go straight to the edge for this one, and I really like it. It really feels finished because I've done that. And so yeah, I really like this one. I think it's kind of more of the style that I want to go down in terms of looseness, and it's definitely good to push out my comfort zone and include more people too. Day 82 is also in the Talens sketchbook, but I went back through the sketchbook to try and fill in a blank page which I'd left previously. So this is how it looks, and this is the full spread. And I created these autumn trees. I really wanted to use an autumnal colour palette, and This one really looked awful when I did the first base of gouache, and it definitely came together a bit more when I added on the Neocolor pastels and then some more details. So I worked in a different way for this one than I normally do. I usually do my base layer in gouache and then I go in with Prismacolor pencils and Neocolor pastels. But this time I went back in over the top again with gouache for the details layer. Usually I only use gouache for the base layer, and then I rely on the Prismacolor pencils and the Neocolor pastels for all the extra bits on top. But for this one, I think it needed a bit more refinement. It was looking quite messy, and you can kind of see that in the process video, which I did include on my vlog. But I think the extra gouache layer on top really helped refine this one and bring it back almost. It's not my favourite piece, and I'm not sure that it really works against the next one, but I really like the autumnal vibes I get from it, and I really like the reflection in the water as well. So nothing to write home about, but I'm glad that it filled up a page in my sketchbook as well, because I don't like leaving blank spaces in between them. And yeah, that was day 82. Day 83, I was in the large sketchbook, and I did this whilst I was on an exclusive Patreon live stream. So I did a live stream that was just for my patrons, created this scene, which was done using a reference I took in Castle Combe. This was where we stayed back in September, and it was a really lovely little village. I did, at the time, do quite a lot of drawing there, and used a lot of references, but I wanted to do a landscape scene. Whenever I'm on a live stream, I want to do something that's kind of in my comfort zone, and I'm really pleased with how this came out. If you watched the vlog, you'll know I wasn't sure at first, but as with most of my paintings, it definitely has grown on me. I really like the vibrancy of the greens and the sunlight, although the dappled sunlight through the grass, on the grass through the trees didn't really work. I really like the difference between the foreground grass and the background grass. And I'm also really pleased with the tree. Trees are something that I've been trying to practice lately. I'm still not massively confident, but I want to try and add more details and things. And I think this one turned out well, and it was a good learning experience to add more details onto the trunk for such a big tree and add on individual leaves instead of just doing it as a big blob. So I'm pleased that I managed to do this on the live stream, because I always get nervous when I have to create something live. But I really like the vibrancy of this one, and I think it was successful. Day 84 was not a good art day, and I really struggled to create on that day. You'll have seen in the vlog, and I'll put a bit of the footage here as well, that I created quite a few different things, and I wasn't happy with any of them. And I just was really struggling. They are okay, but I'm not very proud of them, and I definitely wasn't feeling inspired to make them. Sometimes the creativity just doesn't flow, and I think that's one of the hardest things about doing a daily challenge, is that even if you're not feeling it, you have to push through. So for day 84, I shared this lighthouse picture, which I painted in gouache, and it's very rough, very messy. It's too loose for me. It's kind of muddy. I wish I'd had cleaner water and done a neater edge. But like I said, it wasn't a great day, so I'm pleased that I managed to actually create something. And I'm not going to be able to create really great artwork every single day for this challenge. So again, it's a lesson in teaching me that I can share things like this and share when I have a bad art day, even though it kind of pains me to do so. So yeah, this was just another day in the art challenge, and definitely not one that I'm proud of, but ticked the box. So week 15 was all about Folktale week. Folktale week is a prompt challenge on Instagram, and it's been running for quite a few years, although this is the first year that I've participated. You can either choose one folktale or write your own, or even choose different folktales depending on the prompts and share those. But it's a really fun one, and I've never created work that has narrative before, so it was definitely a challenge. And so week 15 was mostly Folktale week, and then it did stretch into week 16, which will be in the next recap video. So day 85 was the Sunday before Folktale week actually started, which was on the Monday. And I wanted to do some test pieces. I hadn't done as much research as I wanted for Folktale week, So I just went into my sketchbook and did some tests with Neocolor pastels and paint just to try and see the vibe which I want and have a play around with some of the settings that I knew the story was based on. So I decided to do the Folktale of Momotaro, which is an old Japanese folktale. So obviously I did some Japanese houses and some Japanese landscapes and experimented with the trees. Up until the very last day of Folktale Week, which I shared on Instagram, this was actually the most popular spread, which is ironic because this one was definitely the easiest and most simple one of the spreads which you're about to see. But there's definitely like a looseness to this page, and I was surprised by how popular it was on Instagram, but it was definitely a good test for me to try out for the challenge. I usually rely more on paint, whereas with these ones I mostly just use Neocolor pastels. And you'll see like the style does develop on from this page, but it was a good start. So day 86, the prompt was Moon, and this is how the spread came out. For all of the Folktale Week pages, I kept it in this large A4 sketchbook, and I'm really pleased with this one. It's definitely looser than the ones which I created towards the end. I had a lot of fun with this one because it was still in my comfort zone, although it's a different style than what I usually do. But it's a landscape, so I always enjoy doing those. I'm really pleased with how the sky came out. I usually do like a flat block colour for the sky, but I did experiment with this one, and you'll see in next week's video for the last prompt that I really learned from this and like experimented a bit more with it. It feels like a really nice opener to the folktale. I was originally planning on like writing the part of the folktale down here as if it was already a storybook, but I didn't in the end, and then the spreads following on I just did as it is rather than thinking about how it could be where the text would go for a storybook. But yeah, I really like the vibrancy of this one, and I think it really got me excited to carry on with the narrative. And yeah, it was a good start. Day 87 of the Daily Art Challenge and day 2 of Folktale Week was the prompt Dream. And this one was where the peach of the story came in, so Momotaro translates in English to Peach Boy, which you'll see in the next spread. But I love this one. I'm really, really proud of the river. It was something that I did in day 1 with the water, but I really stylized it a lot more for the spread, and I love how the peach looks. I'm less pleased with this side of the spread. It feels like I definitely lost my mojo for the background. I think this is so strong that this almost gets lost, and like I think it could have a bit more refinement. And I like the expression of this little old lady down here, but like I say, drawing characters and people is not one of my strong points and not in my comfort zone. So I'm glad I included it because it did push me a little bit, but I think it could use more work. One of the things that I've mentioned before in these videos and for my daily challenge is that I have to create it on the day. And the spreads for Folktale Week that I created were very labour intensive and kind of taxing to try and work out how to put the narrative in, and definitely took a lot more time than my usual daily art pieces. So I think by the end of the week I was definitely very tired, and I think that reflects in my art as well. It definitely added the pressure because I had to create it on the day, and I'll talk a little bit more about why that was a problem on the next spread. But I really like the colours of this one. It feels very playful and it does feel very at home in a children's book, which is what I wanted from this week. Okay, so day 88 for my daily art challenge and day 3 of Folktale Week was the prompt Awakening. So in the story, Momotaro is born from the peach, and the text to go with this spread was that he was coming out of the peach when the old lady and the old man cut it open. So I knew I obviously had to include characters on this one because that was what I was illustrating, and so I think that's why this one felt very alien to me and very difficult to do. Originally I did this piece separately, so I wasn't planning on doing them all in the sketchbook, but I really wasn't pleased with how that one came out. Like I said, I'm always trying to get the energy and the action in my work, and the one that I did on the loose piece was definitely not what I wanted from it. When I look back at it, it's fine, but it didn't have the feelings that I wanted it to convey. So with like an hour to go before I lost the light, I created this one. And it definitely has a lot more playfulness, which I wanted, and it definitely has the energy which I was trying to convey, but it was rushed, and so I think if I had more time on these spreads, they could be massively improved. But considering I did this in a tight amount of time, and it's a subject which I don't usually draw, I'm quite happy with this. I definitely could have added more details into the background. Obviously that was the time constraint, so I just put in this blue blob, which I think helps with the contrast against the peach, but it definitely looks like I ran out of time, and I did. So I think with more time this could be better, and this is actually my least favourite spread from the whole week, but I am glad that I pushed out my comfort zone and tried something new. So for Folktale week, I definitely pushed out my comfort zone because day 89 was some food illustration, which again I don't do very often. So the prompt for this one was feast, and this one definitely came out differently to how I imagined. There was a couple of thumbnail sketches which I did with different layouts which could have included Momotaro, but I decided to just go full on with food illustration and just try and convey the feast and the juiciness and all the different foods that he could have been eating. One of the things in the story was the dango, so I had to include those, and then I wanted to just have fun and try and illustrate some other Japanese food like the ramen and the onigiri. So although this didn't come out how I imagined it in my head, it definitely feels very strong. I think the contrast in the background definitely helps that. Originally it was very pale blue, and the background took the longest in all of this because I went over the gouache with Neocolor pastels and Prismacolor pencils just to create this texture. And I think that's what makes it quite captivating and so bold. So although it isn't how I imagined it, I think it helps the spread to really stand out. And this did do quite well on Instagram, and I did enjoy drawing all the food. I think it just doesn't really flow with the rest of the story because obviously I did it this way. But considering this isn't a real children's book, I don't think that matters. I don't think the composition is super strong. I don't love some of how this is very taking up the left-hand side and then the small space here. But again, I was limited by time, and so I feel like this one's nice and colourful and I am proud of it. The last day for week 15 was day 90, and the Folktale week prompt for this was bird. So luckily in the Momotaro story there is a pheasant, so I had to include that one. And again, this was very out of my comfort zone. When I first did this spread I hated it, but again, now I come back to look at it, I think it's very nice. I imagine the background differently to how I've done it. I think it needed to be softer, and you can tell I did a lot of it in Prismacolor pencils rather than gouache, so the texture's there and it does sit back, but I think it could have been stronger. It does feel very finished, the spread, and I really like the framing. I added the bushes here and then the trees up here. And I really like the warmth of this colour palette. I added in a lot more oranges in the trees. And there's definitely movement in this spread which I like. I'm really pleased with Momotaro and drawing that character. I'm less pleased with the other characters. Obviously, I don't draw animals that often, let alone in this new sort of cartoony, childlike style. So that was difficult, and again, I only had a day to do it. So with more time, I think I could stylize these a bit better. I really like the Shiba. I'm disappointed with the monkey and the pheasant. This is a Japanese pheasant, so it looks slightly different to our English pheasants, and I think the proportions are a little bit off. But considering I was really losing my motivation for the week at this point, I'm happy with what I created. I found Instagram and the algorithm to really dampen my spirits a little bit on this week because I really felt like I was trying super hard on these spreads and I wasn't really getting the engagement on Instagram, and I found that difficult because the paintings that I take the least amount of time on and I do quickly and don't think much of always do better. And then obviously for this week I was trying super hard out of my comfort zone and spending a lot of time on these paintings, and I wasn't seeing the results. And so looking back, I'm still really proud of everything that I've created, especially for Folktale week. And like, I can see the merits in them, and I can see what I've learned, and if I had more time I think I could improve on them, like if it was an actual children's book. I did feel disappointed like ending week 15 on these, because I wasn't as inspired or feeling as motivated as I wanted. But you'll see in the next video where I do my next roundup that I do end on a high, and I was really pleased about that. So there are 2 other spreads for Folktale week which land in week 17, so that will be on the next recap video. But if you did want to finish the story, then I will pop a link down below to my Instagram where you can see those. I talked a little bit more about the process and how I found it over on my Patreon, and I also share the process for the very last spread if you wanted to see that. Then the beginning of the month is the best time to join my Patreon, so if you want like exclusive videos and live streams, then do have a look. I'll leave a link down below, and I'd love for you to join us and be part of my little art community over there. So that's the end of my week 14 and 15 roundup for my daily art challenge. I'd love to know what your favourite piece is and what you think of the art that I created. It was definitely different this week because I did Folktale week. I think that group of work is still some of my favourites because I do feel like I really pushed myself and learnt a lot. But I also am really proud of the Lake District scene that I did in my Talens sketchbook, because that feels like I was kind of verging on a discovery with my work almost, like it was definitely more of the style that I want to do. But then when Folktale week came along, I decided to go in a different way just to try and illustrate that for a children's book illustration. So I think the next coming weeks I want to go back into the looseness of my work and really explore that again. So thank you so much for getting to the end of the video. If you enjoyed this, then please do hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. I'll be back next Sunday with a new video, and I hope you have a lovely week. See you later.